Play Tour Invitational taking place here in Orlando, Florida. I'm Alex Emo, joined by Mr. Joseph Rothschild, and we've got another great match for you guys. So first up, we have Mr. Christopher Bruce. So if you guys do not know who this is, he's actually a veteran of the Pro Play Tour, obviously, but he plays a deck that he's quite known for at this point, I would say. Magical Musketeer.
Incredibly powerful player. He is actually lives close to me. We were on the same flight.
Oh, really?
He found me in the waiting area and said, "Joseph, put me on feature match." So here we are, putting him on feature match. You're welcome.
He's earned it, though. He got top 8, I believe, at Pro Play Tour Philadelphia.
An incredibly storied, very good player. And really makes Musketeers seem like a tiered meta threat.
Yeah, so he blinds second, and basically he loves just being able to just see his opponent's board and just break it and just kill them. I mean, pretty straightforward. So that's exciting. And we do have the first Spyral of the day.
Are you excited? It's Maurice Brantley, and he is wielding the deck. You're likely to see a lot more of this over the course of today, so might as well start off strong.
Yep, let's go ahead and get right into it because we know you guys want to see it.
All right, so here's a quick die roll, and I mean, to get a branded mask, that's a level of drip that I only hope to attain. Chris!
He's been rocking that, I think, since like Pro Play Tour Philadelphia, so it's been quite some time. All right, so the funny thing is, like, the die roll seems pretty irrelevant because don't both of these players, I'm pretty sure Maurice wants to go first and Chris wants to go second.
I can't imagine being Spyral and not wanting to go first.
Funny you say that, actually, because I do know a couple of people in the field who are playing going second Spyral lists.
For what it's worth, I spoke to Chris a little bit about Musket specifically. He likes exactly this format. I'm talking specifically about the one that exists this weekend and no other time because Lightning Storm will be released, the one that we expect to be dominated by decks like Altergeist. It turns out resolving Magical Musketeer Max against a deck that aims to set 4 pass is unbelievably strong.
Yeah.
Once that deck sees less and less play in the coming weeks as people start boarding into Lightning Storm, Magical Musketeer will take a huge hit in playability. For the time being, it might be the deck to beat.
So Maurice started off with the Terraform and grabbing a copy of Spyral Resort. Spyral Resort is the deck's field spell. I'll go ahead and run down what these cards do because it's been a while since we've seen Spyral. Once per turn is a soft once per turn because you can use multiple copies even though it is at 1. You're able to add a Spyral card from deck to hand, which is already broken enough, and it also bestows all of your Spyral monsters with targeting protection. He is playing... Oh my God, he's playing Performapal Popper-Up.
So Performapal Popper-Up is a very interesting card because it lets any deck Pendulum Summon.
So essentially what this card does is you discard a set amount of cards and then you draw the same amount of cards. And then you're able to special summon monsters that are like basically like pendulum type monsters. I think it's like magicians, or like odd eyes, or like or something else specifically, whatever. And then
Performapal Magician or odd eyes.
Is that what it is? Okay, but it's completely irrelevant because the whole purpose of this is to literally dump cards out of your hand and draw more cards. So it's very high risk because if that card like gets, let's say, ashed, for instance, then you're going like really hard minus. But there could be an instance where you just fuel your graveyard and give yourself more cards that you're going to be wanting to use. And so now we're seeing Maurice go into the double helix after using a copy of Spyral Drone.
All right, chat, tell us how many cards he had in the hand. 2,000, you're saying? All right, I believe you, but I don't know if I want to.
So now he's able to use the effect of Double Helix that allows you to, if you call the top card of your opponent's deck correctly, special summon a Spyral monster from either your deck or your graveyard, and or you could also add it from your graveyard to your hand, interestingly enough. Doesn't come up too often, but can be relevant at times.
And you can see that Chris opened the DD Crow, but unfortunately, I believe used it on the copy of Rescue Mission. That's cool, but really not good enough.
Yeah, so we are going to see the Quick Fix get resurrected here after Spyral Master Plan, which is directly under the Helix, added a copy of Spyral Mission Rescue.
Oh, no, it's even worse. He crowed while there was a Master in grave, or while there was a Rescue and Graveyard. The Crow accomplished absolutely nothing.
Ooh, yeah, that's unfortunate.
Oh, no.
So Rescue was pitched to resurrect Quick Fix. Quick Fix has an effect where you can discard a card and special summon it as long as you control a Spyral Super Agent, which Double Helix counts as. However, if it was summoned this way, it will get banished if it leaves the field. A way to circumvent that is to make an Xyz with it, which is typically done with stuff like Drone. Magician Souls happens to also be a level 1. So you typically make cards like Recital Starling, which can actually, funny enough, search your DD Crow.
I can't believe how playable Recital Starling is in this format. Absolutely ridiculous.
Another option is Sylvan Princess Sprite, which, funny enough, since the deck actually plays a decent amount of spells, if you're able to hit a spell off the top of your deck, you just get free card advantage.
And this is the funniest part of the deck by far.
Correct.
Using a Nightmare Unicorn to shuffle your own copy of Spyral Resort so that your master plan can search it after it's been reborn.
Correct. I think this is very reminiscent for me of like Gem Knight FDK, where you have to like recycle the the Master Diamond to be able to get the full value off the damage.
You're just looping Master Plan over and over again instead of like Gem Knight Fusion.
So now we're going to see Spyral Master Plan get resurrected. That will allow Maurice to add another copy of Mission Rescue to his hand. Master Plan is not once per turn, which is one of the reasons why Spyral is so powerful, because you're able to search 3 Monster Reborns in your deck.
And of course, then you use those Monster Reborns to reborn the Master Plan. It's just free link material.
Yes, absolutely. So it allows you to link climb with such ease. We now see the Appaloosa on the field here. And now, since Master Plan was sent to the graveyard, it triggers the other effect, which you can search a copy of Spyral Resort, the deck's field spell, and any other Spyral monster and add it to your hand. Now, this is why we saw Maurice shuffle back the Resort with Unicorn, because you have to search Resort, otherwise you cannot activate Master Plan's effect. And now we get to see him use Resort again, because as I alluded to earlier, it is not a hard once per turn, so he's able to search whatever piece he's missing. Typically, you will search Spyral Sleeper, unless you already have it in your hand or added it to Master Plan. So he might opt to search potentially, it depends. Maybe you go for a last resort if you want to equip it to the sleeper. You might want to search a super agent if you're looking to extend the plays. Again, but the funny thing is we see Spyral, he didn't even use Magician Souls, and he's still doing just fine.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of hype has been generated about the specific interactions between Magician Souls and Rescue, but really Perform Palpopper up, filling almost the exact same space in the deck. Maybe it's time to start taking Spyral more seriously because of its access to multiple cards that send cards from the hand to the graveyard in order to plus yourself, not simply the one that people are clamoring for because it's $100.
So here's the rank 1 Xyz Recital Starling. So he's going to be able to add a DD Crow to his hand. This is very reminiscent of the old Spyral days, and DD Crow is still pretty good in this format.
Yeah,
so
obviously old Spyral was a Firewall combo deck, but the ability to just halfway through the combo add a DD Crow to hand meant that in the mirror you were able to prevent your opponent from accessing stuff like Master Plan if they didn't already have, I don't know exactly, Rescue in the graveyard.
So Maurice went ahead and special summoned Spyral Super Agent, which you do by calling the top card of your opponent's deck correctly. Chris should have revealed it, but we already know what the top card is, so he's going to just go ahead and leave it there. Since he now has a Super Agent, he's going to discard the third and final Rescue out of his hand to resurrect the Quick Fix. I missed what Maurice searched with the Quick Fix. Was it Last Resort, I'm assuming?
So what do you mean, the Quick Fix?
Yes.
Yeah, I assume it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already seen the other gear activated, although while we were looking at LCQs, we saw Wire, of all things.
There were some people playing Utility Wire.
On end boards. Yeah, there's the Last Resort in hand. So from here, we can go into Trigate, likely. Shocking to see this card come back.
Oh, it looks like it might just be going for a Link 2 here, though. I don't know if he has the God board. But
okay,
yeah,
well,
so
this is probably good enough. It's some protection, and you will, in fact, have access to Sleeper as well.
And so there's Sleeper. So Sleeper gets summoned by banishing 3 Spyral cards out of your graveyard. It is 2,800 attack and has an effect that you can target a Spyral card and 2 cards your opponent controls and destroys them.
Now, notably, it won't be destroyed.
Correct.
Because he'll be targeting himself with a copy of Last Resort attached, which prevents destruction by effects.
Yes, Last Resort makes it so that whatever it is equipped to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and it cannot be targeted by card effects as well. And also another effect that doesn't come up too often, you can send a card you control to the graveyard so the equipped monster can attack directly. Does come up in niche instances. It also allows you to get a rescue out of your hand if you don't have a discard outlet. That was used in the old Spyral combos. But this is the end board. So we have an Appaloosa for 2, which isn't too impressive. But
Chris has outs.
Yeah,
I will say.
I was going to say. And Musket, interestingly enough, has outs to this because, you can just have a Desperado for the Appaloosa, just as an example.
So if you Desperado, you could necessarily keep it up at all times because any singular Spyral monster, or not Spyral, Musket monster on your side of the field means that you are going to be able to activate spells and traps from your hand. If you do that, you can just snipe the last resort when your opponent targets their own monster and it blows up their field. So Valor not even expending the activation of the Appaloosa. Youch! And we're going to game 2.
We're going to game 2. Wow, okay. Now, the thing is, too, like I said earlier, Chris, he's been playing this deck for, when was Philadelphia? I mean, that was like 5 months ago.
Oh, at least.
At least 4 to
June,
5 months ago. So he's been playing this deck for that long. He was breaking pendulum boards back when, before Electromite got hit. Like, he knows how to play against, like, these build my board style of decks. He's no stranger to it. So, sometimes, the cards just don't go your way, and that's fine. But, I mean, it's I hope we get to see him actually get to pull off some of the shenanigans that we've seen in the past, because some of the stuff he's done before has been extraordinary.
Mm-hmm. To those of you in chat saying it's very hard to Nibiru Spyral, Spyral is one of the decks that doesn't often make Appaloosa pre-5 summons, but it is also one of the decks that has extenders. So if you Nibiru them as early as possible, they can likely still make a board.
So we're going to see Maurice go first, so hopefully Chris does have enough to stop it here. We're going to see an activation of Foolish Burial Goods, which will send a copy of Spyral Mission Assault. Again, for those of you who don't know, I'm going to give you a brief primer on Spyral. You banish it, which it looks like Maurice is going to do, and you get to special summon a Spyral monster from your hand, so that's pretty cool. And in this case, it is Master Plan, which can be pretty nice because now you get to essentially replace that card, and you get to now get a copy of Mission Rescue.
All right, and Master Plan has made it to the field.
So now we're going to go ahead and normal summon a copy of Tough. That's typically a one-of in these Spyral decks. It's a nice option for going second.
Tough's great because even if it's not able to rearrange the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, it's able to figure out what they are.
Tough is nice because it's not a hard once per turn either, so you can actually continuously abuse it. So you could, essentially, if you're going second, let's say, normal summon Tough, pop a card.
Right.
Then you could, like, big red it back, pop another card, and then you could actually double helix it back again, because double helix could special summon from the grave, pop it a third time, or you could rescue it back and you could pop like a 4th card. So
I hate this deck.
Spyral,
I hate it.
This is one of the reasons why Spyral is so strong against back row decks specifically, like let's say Geist or Guru Control in this case, because that's like the decks that people would be looking towards in that instance, just because it's so easily able to churn through the back row. And Super Agent could pop back row too. So
what I don't like is that as soon as we heard this new format was being announced, and like all these huge bans that didn't involve Altergeist were going to shake up the format in a way that Altergeist was the best deck, I just didn't buy it because the ascendancy of Spyral means that back row decks are just going to have to compete against it. And we're having a real quick discussion about what exactly is going on. Maurice, I think, is shortcutting a little bit, and we'll just have a resolution of this, hopefully.
Yeah, I think he was just resolving the effect of Master Plan and adding a copy of Quick Fix and Resort. But I'm not exactly sure. It looks like he's putting it back. That's interesting.
It might be that he wasn't trying to add Quick Fix, was trying to add something else. He had drones. I could see you mistaking those 2 cards for each other. They both have 1 star and everything.
Oh, and it was like Chris trying to like call him out because he already like technically like started shuffling.
Ideally, it would be Chris saying, "Well, I have to have confirmation that that's the card you added."
Okay,
and that's why a discussion with the judge would happen at all.
That's fair. So I mean, it looks like it's resolved. Perform Palpopper up again.
Here
so
it
look
is again. I mean, what
look
do
at
you
this.
do?
You get to discard your rescue and your drone, draw 2 cards, and then you take 1,000 damage for every card in your hand. That was the drawback I forgot to mention earlier with the card.
All right, chat. What's the number? I'm going to put 2 if you don't say anything.
So it looks like he has 3 cards in hand. I'm going to go with 3.
Yeah, 3 seems reasonable.
Yeah, so that's going to put Maurice down to 5,000. But this is so nice because it gives Maurice setup by discarding the drone and the rescue. He's able to just banish the rescue to resummon the drone. Drone allows him to look at the top 3 cards of Chris's deck, stack them in any way. Not only is it good because you get to ensure double helix resolves, but being able to stack your opponent's worst card on top of their deck is just such a good feeling.
Oh, fantastic. Notably, Chris does have an evenly matched in the hand. So that means that likely if Maurice builds a board like he did last time that's particularly weak to evenly matched, he will have to contend with the Great Equalizer.
So it looks like we're going to summon Quick Fix off Double Helix here, and that's going to trigger adding a Spyral Gear card to Maurice's hand, which in this case is Big Red. Big Red being the Equip Spell Monster Reborn.
Chris is like shaking his head a little bit, but I don't know how upset you can be about this. This is just what the deck does. Does Maurice have an anti-spell in the opener? Is that what I'm seeing?
Ooh. It would be that is
it
an anti-spell.
Oh my
yes.
goodness! I just
and
don't
there's
know.
a call by the grave too. So even if Chris had a hand trap, that would be man, that's wild.
I just don't know if there's a lot of utility for anti-spell against Musket. Like, what are you trying to prevent your opponent from activating? Never Endorphin?
It also feels bad too because Maurice, if you notice, stacked a copy of Ghost Ogre on the top, and Ogre is one of the nice cards that can deal with double helix because it doesn't target and it actually removes double helix from the field, so you don't get the special summon because there's no arrow that it's pointing for the monster to be summoned to.
Hate this, by the way. Activating the effective Barricade Board blocker just to get cards out of your hand, really.
Barricade Board blocker in this deck is so cool because not only is it a discard outlet, but you can actually let your resort be destroyed in the end phase, and then Barricade Board blocker resolves its effect, and you can add resort back to your hand, so you get to use it again on the next turn.
All right, there is Appaloosa.
Yeah, just for 2. Not the biggest Appaloosa, but still, you know, pretty imposing because you have to deal with 2 effect negations.
I think really all Chris is looking at right now is like monster effect activations that will negate spells.
So here comes Big Red. That's going to resurrect one of Maurice's cards. I think he has a what does he have? He has Drone, Master Plan, Quick Fix. Tough doesn't do anything though.
What? He's doing his best.
When you go second, Tough puts in work. Going first, Tough does absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going for the Quick Fix. That's fine. That allows you to generate another plus. You can search probably your last resort here.
Mm-hmm.
Depends what else he has.
I mean, I think the last missing piece to the board, if you're on Maurice's side, is in fact the last
right.
resort.
And
now
here
we're going to use the first resort to get a copy of Sleeper.
Correct, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and get the Sleeper. And he should have, yes, he has 3 Spyral cards engraved, so he's fine. So he'll be able to have that. And this is going to be a fairly similar board to what he was dealing with before,
Oh,
I
this
would
is
say.
giving me flashbacks.
It's not as bad.
It's not as bad.
It's not
for
as
sure.
bad. Absolutely
Imagine
not.
this board, except it's also a U-Link and it's got Omni Negation.
The combos also took at least twice as much time.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to link off for a Link Karibo.
Now that is actually giving me flashbacks. That's what the deck used to do. Not often do you see that anymore. And here comes the Sleeper.
Yeah, I
but
think
this is not that shocking of a board.
Yeah, again, it's not that intimidating. He also could go for Quick Fix again, but like I don't know if he has anything else that he wants to search here.
Well, last time we saw him co-link a copy of Nightmare Phoenix. He could do that with the Quick Fix in Graveyard, but I don't know how relevant it is.
He also,
He's thinking about it.
Some of these lists are also on multiple copies of Big Red, so like you could just search a Big Red for next turn.
And we're shuffling Tough back in end phase.
Yeah, so one of the things about Spyral Resort, again, for those of you who are unaware, you do have to, at the end phase as a maintenance cost, shuffle a monster back into your deck.
There's the anti-spell.
To make sure that Resort stays on the field. Otherwise, Resort destroys itself. So that is why we saw Tough get shuffled back. Interesting enough, it looks like Chris's hand is like all traps and like a musket.
Yeah, so Musket plays a ton of traps that it can activate from the hand. The only thing that anti-spell is really blocking are draw spells and Never Endorphin.
Boom! So we're going
There
into
it is.
evenly matched instantly. And even though, you know, Spiral's a good deck, but look at this. Evenly match is going to just clean up this board here.
I mean, what do you pick? You can't pick Sleeper, obviously. You probably pick Appaloosa, but even that's not fantastic.
You leave Sleeper. That's tough.
He is leaving Sleeper.
I think you leave Sleeper.
Right.
So the reason Sleeper can pop like 2 cards for just 1, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
So that's typically why. I mean, it's a tough call.
I mean, from here you can just do anything. I assume we'll make max.
I think against Musket, like one of the incentives of keeping Sleeper is like they need to have a monster on board, right?
Yeah.
And so if you Sleeper that monster, then, which in this case he didn't, but like if they don't have a monster on the board, they can't really have access to all their other cards.
It's one of those scenarios where, like, yeah, you want to Sleeper the normal summon because then Musket is absolutely forced to pass. But then you're out of Sleeper. You have no cards in hand. What, your draw for turn has to get you there?
Right. So we see Maurice taking a read of Starfire here. So the Magical Musketeers, they all trigger if a card is activated in the same column as them. So in this case, Starfire has an ability to special summon another Magical Musketeer from the deck. Again, if a card is activated in that column. So,
and he is going to go ahead and Sleeper it.
So we are going to see a Sleeper response here.
Wow, and Chris doesn't have anything to respond with. There are negations that potentially could have been activated, but none of them in the grip.
So now we're seeing the last effect of Sleeper here. So if Sleeper is destroyed, it destroys your whole board, and then you get to put back a copy of, or excuse me, you get to special summon a super agent from your deck. But actually, wait a minute. I think,
Oh, yeah.
doesn't it have to destroy a card?
Yeah, we may have to pause this one
I think
real
we may
quick.
have to pause it real quick. Let's go ahead and see if we can get the judge's attention. Again, because Spyral's like back in the format, this might just be something I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and get over there really quick. It should be fine. We should be able to. I don't think they're getting too far ahead here to be able to make it irreparable. Yeah, Sleeper, I believe, has to destroy at least one card before the effect activates. And it looks like Joseph's just talking with the judge really quick just to confirm that that is the case. Again, Spyral getting back into the format. Some people, if they picked up the deck, they may not be familiar with how all the cards work, which is perfectly fine. And so it looks like they're just having a quick discussion of it, and so I think our judge is just going to let him know what's going on. Looks like he's just explaining the situation now. Mr. Rothschild Taylor can go ahead and inform us if there's anything we missed. Or
Yes, chat, there's a lot that you've missed, but not in this particular instance. Thank you for your input. We're going to have to discuss this real quick.
So, I mean, if that's the case, I think they just have to revert the game state.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just have to see what happens here first.
I think the discussion right now is if the game state is reversible or if we're going to proceed. Yeah, it looks like they've decided it is reversible, and we're just going to put that sucker back in the hand and try again. I know it's shocking, chat, but in fact we are reading, or at least one of us is. Simo said, Joseph, as the underling, it is your job to interact with the plebeians.
You're also closer, to be fair.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so thank you, Chad, as always. Let's figure out if there is a way to deal with this.
I think it's resolved because what you missed was that I think there was like an attempted activation of Where Art Thou, which can't be activated considering there wasn't a level 1 monster on Maurice's field.
Yeah.
So again, I think we reverse it. I think it's fine.
And I'm pretty sure that was a scoop out of Maurice.
Oh, okay. So we're going to be going to game 3. I mean, that pretty much makes sense. Your board gets completely evenly matched, and I think that's fine. So game 3, I'm curious to see. Again, I'm pretty sure Maurice is going to go first.
And you can see he's kept a bunch of going first tools in, things
Right.
like Anti-Spell Fragrance. That is a terrible hand.
Did he brick?
Oh, that's awful.
Oh, no.
It looks like Called Ash, Anti-Spell,
I think it was
Rescue.
I think it was Assault.
Assault and Rescue?
No, it's Big
Big
Red.
Red
Big
and
Red.
Rescue. Oh, no, that is unplayably bad.
And this is one of the issues with
Maurice.
Spyral. Like, there can be these types of hands that are, like, literally unplayable hands.
Maurice, if you're going to do something like this, do not set cards.
So
that's the only way in which Chris gets into the game is if he's able to resolve Max just to pass.
Now, to be fair, at least Maurice has the anti-spell, and Chris drew a couple of spells. But
sure.
I don't know if that matters, but we'll see. There is the, is that Calamity, it looks like?
You play this just for Utopia Double.
So Magical Musketeer Max is now going to activate. So this card...
Now, thankfully, Maurice does have Ash.
Yes, so you can either add you special summon monsters equal to the number of spells and traps your opponent controls, or add Magical Musket spells and traps equal to the number of monsters your opponent controls. So
That's true.
So in this case, Chris would have special summoned 2 monsters. It was met with Ash, and now we're just seeing an attack. I think Max is 1,000 attack.
He is 1,000.
So we're just going to see 1,000 points of damage go Maurice's way, and Chris is going to set a couple cards. Play's going to go back to Maurice. Did he get a card to unbrick his hand is the question.
It's not going to take a lot, but it will take something.
Ooh,
Apparently
it doesn't
not.
look like it. We're just going to see another set.
I mean, we could see another normal summoned Musketeer into another attempt at Max.
He's going to set 2.
Stop setting cards, my guy.
Well, the thing is, if that Magical Musketeer Max leaves the board and Chris attempts to summon another one, he could call by the grave. So
Yeah, I don't think that's very likely.
I don't think
yes.
it's likely, but I'm saying at least there's like the chance.
Oh, there's the Reborn
Okay,
getting that Calamity.
So Starfire is going to be normal summon. We're going to see Monster Reborn activated in the same column, so that's going to resurrect this Calamity, but then it also triggers Starfire, allowing Chris to special summon a Magical Musketeer out of his deck.
And it's just Caspar. We don't need to spoil
Correct.
anything. Caspar's the one that's coming out.
Yes, and if he was trying to OTK with like Utopia Double, he'd probably go for Calamity if it were still in his deck, but Caspar is the next best one.
And we can see that Double or Nothing is actually in the hand already.
Yes.
So seems unlikely that that'll be the play.
Well, Maurice also doesn't have a monster, so that is another reason why
there's
that
a lot of things going wrong.
So Caspar, it essentially is the same as Starfire, except instead of special summoning Musketeer monster from the deck, if a card is activated in the same column, you get to add a copy of any Magical Musketeer card to your hand. But here we go. We see another copy of Max coming down using that Calamity, and this could be a unfortunately, it would only be a summon for 2 if it resolves.
I mean, that's pretty good.
But that's still pretty good. And it's going to resolve. Chris might just be able to just swing in with all of these monsters.
So for what it's worth, with something under the Caspar column, as long as it's activatable, we can go search a Desperado afterwards and potentially pop the anti-spell if we want to be activating spells, pop any of the set cards if we so desire. We could get a last stand if we expect them to have some sort of battle trick. I mean, wow, it just seems really good from Chris's position here.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't realize, Max in that instance could have summoned 4 monsters from Chris's deck. But he went for another copy of Starfire and a copy of Dock. Dock allows you, if a card is activated in that column, to correct me if I'm wrong, it adds a Magical Musket card from from graveyard to hand.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So now we're going to see a activation of Cross Dominator.
Well, might as well negate its effect. We're not using that again.
So he's going to negate the effect of his own Magical Musketeer Max and make his attack 0 just so he can trigger Caspar because it's a card that was activated in the same column. And now Chris is able to search via Caspar's effect.
So the Dead Man's Burst, or the last stand, if you live in America, is in fact the end of the game. He would have to have 2 pieces of disruption in order to beat this, and I don't think it's very likely.
We don't even know. It might just be the end of the game anyway. He might be able to kill him this turn. We don't know.
No, that's what I mean. I think it's over.
Last stand negates. It's a counter trap that can be activated from the hand because he controls a Magical Musketeer monster and
so
negates
let's go
any
through
spell
Phoenix
or
here.
trap. So we're going to go to Phoenix. It's a co-linked Phoenix, keep in mind.
Discarding the Mystic Mine.
So Mine's going to be discarded, popping the anti-spell. Mine, a very pivotal tool in how Chris is able to break boards.
Chris, what are you doing? No, you had a draw there. So hilariously, Double or Nothing is not all the way dead, in fact. Let's get in with Doc. That's 16, I believe.
Is it 16? Okay.
And I think this is lethal. He'll negate the Ona attack with Utopia and then get in with Double or Nothing.
Oh, just for the 5K?
Yeah.
Oh,
5K,
okay.
Good enough. All right, he gets. He says, I'll negate my own attack. Maurice says, you hard drew Utopia Double? All right, I mean, fine. Just going to read it real quick. I believe Utopia Double is actually the card that prevents it from attacking directly. If you just hard Double or Nothing, you sure as heck can beat face.
That's awesome. And that's it. And Chris won it.
Oh, wow.
Magical Musketeer beating Spyral in round 2. So, what did we say? Chris knows this deck.
That's a matchup I did not expect him to walk away from.
I didn't either.
He aims to go second almost every game. He drew, like 1 equalizer that entire set, and somehow he walked away with both Game 2 and Game 3.
Well, let's be honest. Maurice did brick in Game 3 pretty hard, but
yeah.
I think that's one of the big problems with Spyral, which is like a lot of people are testing like best deck of the format, hands down.
Yeah.
Could be. We don't know yet. But I think one of the things holding it back is that you can just draw these really awkward hands of these random one-ofs that your deck has to inherently play, and if you don't have the correct starter cards, it can get just really clumpy. This has been the same issue Spiral's had forever. This isn't anything new, but now that Resort is at 1, Drone is at 1, all the good cards have been, not all the good cards, a lot of the good cards have been hit on the Forbidden list in some way, and compared to like the OCG, let's say, they have 2 Resorts. They have 3 Drones. They have, I think, 1 for 1 at 2, which is kind of bonkers. But in any case, it just kind of goes to show that consistency can be the killer for Spyral. But I'm still expecting to see it in Top Cut for sure.
For sure. I do think you raise a good point, especially with greedy lists, I'm sorry to say, like Maurice's, playing things like DD Crow off of Recital Starling. It's very easy to draw a hand that's like anti-spell, assault, rescue, DD Crow, and not
Another
be able
rescue.
to manage anything. Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's effectively what just happened.
Sure. So let's go ahead and get Chris for an interview. I'm sure,
Yeah, for
he
sure.
would love to talk about his deck. He does love muskets.
And
So
we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely. So we're going to get that interview ready for you guys, so don't go anywhere. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Pro Play Tour Invitational with your Round 2 winner, Mr. Chris Bruce. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Good. So how'd you feel about that last match?
Spyral's like my deck I'm most afraid of. The sleeper last resort thing is like so hard for my deck to break. I need like Evenly or Dark Ruler to like get through that. But I was just lucky game 3 he bricked.
Are you main decking both of those
No.
already?
I'm main decking Evenly.
Okay.
I'm siding the Dark Ruler
Sure.
just because of Spyral, and there's the sleeper's so strong.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know, like, because like dealing with like Appaloosa isn't too difficult. You got like Desperado, like yours, like that's like fine. You can kind of like work with that, and plus you get to keep the musket monster on the board
Yeah.
with like Appaloosa, and I know that's like one of the choke points with your deck. But so I mean, obviously you've been playing muskets forever, and so why'd you feel like playing it for this event?
I've been kind of lazy with playing lately. I haven't played a new deck in a while. I was like really close to playing Guru because that's what I play for the WCQ.
Sure.
But I'm like, nothing really got touched. I have to just worry about sleeper. I'll just try it and
Sure.
see how it goes.
So aside from sleepers, or anything else that you're like really worried about like running into, or is Spyral like enemy number one?
Spyral's enemy number 1 just because that's just such a hard match. And then also against like some of the control decks, if they're running like all the warnings, all the judgments, I can't use my last stand to stop that because
Sure.
it negates the summon. So that's another rough matchup if they just have all the solemns.
Are you main decking anything in particular like for the Spyral matchup? Like we know that Droll is like super popular at this event.
Well, I haven't had a lot of practice against Spyral 2. I'm main decking 2 Ogres, and I'm main decking 2 DD Crows, but I kind of messed up in game 1 with the DD Crow because
Right.
I completely forgot he had the trap and grave.
Yeah, that just happens. I'm sure you won't do that again anymore now that you know. So, but
hope.
it's perfectly fine. All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Chris. Guys, we actually just called time in the round right before we got you guys this interview, so we should be having round 3 coming up very shortly, so don't go anywhere.